after putting myself through long, painful fasts of 48 to 76 hours at a time. That's right, I'd literally starved myself for days. Yet, none of it reversed the weight gain. So I know how angry, frustrating, and deflating it feels to have tried everything and still not be able to lose the weight, to be haunted by your genetics, to feel like a prisoner trapped in a body that has betrayed you, to have your youth, energy, and self-esteem slip away, to almost feel hopeless, to the point where you just want to give up. And that's exactly how I felt. So, I can empathize with what you may have been through up to this point. Because as educated and as experienced as I was, until I figured out how to put what you're about to learn to good use, losing any amount of meaningful weight and keeping it off was impossible. I do not want you to keep struggling the way I had been for so long. So pay very close attention to the metabolism information we're about to cover, because it means absolutely everything to your fat-burning success. You see, there are two critical parts of your metabolism that ultimately determine if you will burn fat or store fat. In other words, if you will be lean or overweight. The first part is the speed of your metabolism, which I bet you've heard before, as it's a common belief that a fast metabolism is the reason why those naturally lean and lucky individuals are the way they are. And there's truth to that, because having a fast metabolism is a big factor. Just think of the speed of your metabolism as a furnace. The faster your metabolism, the hotter your furnace is burning. And that's what we want, because the hotter your furnace is burning, the more fat and calories it can incinerate. However, the next part is key. Yet, it's the part that the vast majority of fat loss experts are totally unaware of, even though it's just as important, if not more important, than the speed of your metabolism. Because here's the thing. It doesn't really matter how fast your metabolism is or how hot your furnace is burning if the fat and calories are not making it to the furnace to be burned. And this is where the second part of your metabolism comes into play in a big way, which is the efficiency of your metabolism. Now, the efficiency of your metabolism determines two things. First, it determines the amount of stored fat that gets released from your body and transported to the furnace to be burned. When you have an inefficient metabolism, your body just flat out refuses to send your stored fat to the furnace no matter how hard you diet or how much you exercise. Instead, it just keeps fat locked to your body and throws away the key despite all of your discipline and efforts. And that's why the most obvious sign of an inefficient metabolism is flabbiness, stubborn fat or cellulite that just stays stuck to your problem areas even if you've been doing crazy amounts of exhaustive cardio and utterly starving yourself to death. However, when you have an efficient metabolism, your body automatically releases and transports stored fat to the furnace to be burned with minimal to no effort needed. Secondly, the efficiency of your metabolism also determines how much of the food you eat gets shuttled to the furnace to be burned, and how much of it will be stored as unhealthy fat. Unfortunately, with an inefficient metabolism, it doesn't really matter how little you eat or how hard you diet, because way more of whatever food you do eat, especially carbs, gets stored as unsightly fat instead of being shuttled to the furnace to be burned. Here's a quick example of what that means. With an inefficient metabolism, you can restrict your calories, go hungry, and eat next to nothing all day long, like so many of us have tried. Then, you can have a single piece of pizza with a salad at night, and your body still ends up automatically storing a big part of that one measly piece of pizza as fat, instead of transporting it to the furnace to be burned. This is a harsh reality for so many folks that struggle with their weight. This is exactly why the barbaric counting calories approach to weight loss is so outdated and just flat out does not work for 95% of people. Instead, it can feel like a cruel joke. I've worked with thousands of folks that have tried counting calories, yet they were naturally left even more frustrated and in greater despair when the scales still didn't budge. On the other hand, when you have an efficient metabolism, you can enjoy pancakes and bacon for breakfast, a burger and fries with a shake at lunch, a tasty snack in the afternoon, and then have as much pizza or pasta as you want for dinner. And all of those calories automatically get shuttled to the furnace to be burned, and none of them get stored as fat. Totally unfair, I know, and it flies in the face of the calories myth that's been peddled to the masses for years. Yet, we all know people like this. Folks that can eat whatever they want, whenever they want, and never seem to gain weight regardless of how much or how little they exercise. And that's what's so amazing about having a fast and an efficient metabolism. Latest scientific studies now show that you automatically burn at least 5 times more fat on autopilot than if you have a slow and inefficient metabolism. So, what causes a slow and inefficient metabolism? Well, latest scientific research shows that 75 to 80% of us have simply inherited a slow and inefficient metabolism to some degree. And decades of research points to evolution as the most likely reason why. Storing fat is how most of our ancestors were able to survive. Throughout most of human history, food was scarce, and we couldn't afford to burn it away. We needed to store as much of it as possible for future warmth and survival, which is why most of us to this day are still hardwired to store fat. However, notice how I said most of us. You see, some of our ancestors were not meant to store fat at all. Quite the opposite. For our ancestors that did the hunting, they needed to have a blazing fast and extremely efficient metabolism. For the hunters, storing fat for the future was totally pointless because even just surviving the day was far from guaranteed. Plus, they needed to tap into energy immediately during their daily fights for survival and had to catch animals that were much bigger, stronger, and faster than they were, and to run from large scary predators that were constantly trying to turn them into a meal. For thousands of years, beginning in the morning at first light, the hunter's metabolism had to be working in overdrive all the way until sundown for the best chance of survival. Whereas, the majority of our ancestors needed the exact opposite. Their metabolisms needed to be much slower and less efficient in order to survive long periods of time without food. These are two very different survival strategies that have been written deep into the genes that control our metabolism because they created a balance that was necessary over thousands of years of human evolution. Thing is, life is completely different for us today than it was for our hunter-gatherer ancestors. Food is no longer scarce, and most of us have access to it in abundance. Yet, our genetics and our hunter-gatherer metabolisms remain the same. So, although there is still the same percentage of people among us that have a naturally fast and super efficient metabolism, who can eat whatever they want and always stay lean, the majority of us are still stuck with a slow and inefficient metabolism to some degree that is constantly in fat storing mode. And while this may have served our food-scarce ancestors well, it completely cursed you in the modern day. You see, your body doesn't know or care about your desire for a slim and attractive stomach that looks great in a bathing suit. All it thinks is that the more unattractive body fat you're carrying, the more it helps your chances for future survival. And although you can't change your genetics, you can do the next best thing. You can instantly override them for the day. And you can do so every single day that you follow the metabolism electrifying, fat-burning tea trick that I'll be walking you through. So, what does tea have to do with any of this? Well, I promise I'll get to that in just a moment. You see, over the last decade, myself and my entire team of world-class nutritionists have been conducting what has been touted to be the largest privately funded nutritional research expedition ever into a newly discovered natural phenomenon known as nutritional synergy. Simply put, nutritional synergy is when individual nutrients work perfectly together to enhance each other's effectiveness and to ultimately deliver results far greater and far better than whatever would be possible if the nutrients were taken by themselves. Nutritional synergy was the key to the remarkable effectiveness of our groundbreaking anti-aging nightly regeneration breakthrough that millions of people now rely on to turn back the clock, restore their health, and tap into their true metabolic potential overnight.